Gorla. Taoiseach, on November the 10th last, the people voted to enshrine the rights of the child into the Constitution. And you said at that time that the referendum was an opportunity to state clearly and categorically that we, the Irish people, value children and childhood. Taoiseach said that was the rhetoric. We know that the reality has been very, very different. The reality is that your government, through the Department of Youth and Children, is handing down cuts across the board to youth services across the state and indeed here in this city of Dublin. And be very clear, Taoiseach, that these cuts will bite hard and will target some of the most disadvantaged communities across the state. Take here in the city of Dublin. The City of Dublin Youth Services Board are proposing cuts, some of them of the magnitude of 14% to projects right across the city. So, for instance, the Swan project in North Wall will lose over €62,000. Cabra for youth will be cut. Ballyfermot Youth Service will lose nearly €74,000, as will the base in Ballyfermot take a huge hit. The Braddock Youth Service in the northwest inner city is facing a massive cut of €65,000. Sphere 17 in Darndale will lose over €122,000. Briar in Ballymun will lose nearly €150,000. The Finglas Youth Resource Centre will also be hard hit. And there are many, many others that I could list to you. Now, Taoiseach, each of these projects that deals with children, some of them in crisis, some of them in trouble, but deals with them at the front line, represent real value for money. The state gets bang for its buck. For every cent that is invested in our youth and in these projects, there is a direct return to society, to the state and to the exchequer. The scale of these cuts as proposed will be literally devastating for youth projects across the state and here in Dublin. So, Taoiseach, let me put it to you now. What about your much-heralded commitment to valuing children, childhood and youth? What of the commitments of your government to these community and to these children? And what, Taoiseach, are you going to do about these cuts? The Minister is set to sign off on them next week. Will you intervene to stop her?
Thank you, Deputy. Taoiseach.
Well, first of all, this government does value children and childhood. This is the first government that has a dedicated department of children and youth, headed by a minister at the Cabinet. This is the government that delivered on a commitment that had been spoken about for 20 years to enshrine the rights of children in our Constitution. We advanced that and we took that forward. This government spends a considerable sum of money in the delivery of youth services. The way in which those youth services are delivered are through the VECs, through youth organisations, through the various youth bodies and youth services that are organised throughout the country. In the course of time, the demand for services, the numbers of young people using them, the numbers involved, they vary from time to time. And therefore, from time to time, the amount that is spent in an individual service may go up and may go down. I know that the Minister for Youth and Children has an ongoing dialogue with the providers of youth services, consults with them regularly about what is the best way in which to deploy and use the resources of the state to provide youth services and to ensure that those youth services are working in the interests of the young people for whom they are provided.
Deputy MacDonald.
Well, Taoiseach, the establishment of government departments and changes to the Constitution are only really of any value if they are actioned, if they become a reality and if they inform public policy. So for all of your rhetoric, the truth is that the youth affairs budget has been cut by 10%. And that cut will directly translate itself, for instance, into a 14% cut for the Swan project in the North Wall. This project caters for 350 young people and youth. This project is doing immensely valuable work. And if their work is undermined or disrupted, if services are lost, be very clear, Taoiseach, that we will lose on the double. The children and youth lose the opportunity of the service available to them, but the state loses too. So don't be penny wise and pound foolish on this matter. It mightn't be a big deal for yourself, Taoiseach, that the sum €62,000 which this particular project will lose. It is, after all, only a fraction of your own salary and only a fraction of the disgraceful pensions that so many former politicians are receiving. But just as families with small incomes struggle with a small cut, so too projects with very lean budgets really struggle with any type of cut. Now, I want to put it to you again that these cuts are wrong. I don't believe that you can stand over or defend them. I just don't. So tell us, Taoiseach, will you intervene with the Minister, Francis Fitzgerald? Will you insist that these cutbacks are stopped? And will you and your government insist that the commitments you made to children, to disadvantaged communities, will in fact be honoured?
Thank you.
Well, first of all, when it comes to rhetoric, nobody can take second place to the rhetoric of Sinn Féin. And we've had another example. We've had another example this morning of their father Ted economics, where you take one percentage and you add it to another percentage, and you end up with. Now, can I just say to you that that on the issue of the provision of youth services, the Minister for Youth and Children already has in place a process of discussion and dialogue and consultation with the providers of youth services. And where there is a difficulty in relation to an individual youth service and the resources that are available to them, there is a channel of communication between the service providers and the Minister for Youth and Children. And as I've said, from time to time, because of either changes in population, changes in demand, changes in the range of services that are provided, the allocations to individual services and individual projects may change. But if there is a difficulty with any of that, as I've said, there is a channel of communication between the providers of the youth services and the Minister for Youth and Children. And where service providers have difficulties, they can use that channel of communication and have it discussed. Well, but there's, thank you. Yes, but there is already. I mean, there's no point. There is already, why intervene where there is a direct channel of communication? And there is a direct channel of communication, and the reason that there is a direct channel of communication is because we have a dedicated Department of Youth and Children which is dealing with this.